Good morning, afternoon and evening everyone. It's been a while, so welcome to the new year. We hope that you've had a great holiday period, and now we're just going to get on with the video. It could either be a long video or it could be a short video. We're not really sure, it just depends on how it's edited. So this video is going to be laid out a little differently to normal, as the updates have been, well, a little all over the place, so it's probably easier just to talk a bit more randomly and uncoordinated. So let's just keep that in mind. So let's do it, starting with the pre-funding period, and then the during funding period, and then the end of year period. So, at the start of the year, we did a lot of work on the map, such as new points of interests, like the castle, the swamp ruins, the fort, and more. Human gameplay was started with iron heavy and medium armor, followed by the start of a super basic human combat system. Human-related concept art was also increased from the previous year with concept art of safe zones, wooden armor, saddles, and 2 new dossiers. Most of the work, however, was on dragons and creatures, with the rig for the Vitreous being started and finished, the Williams being remade, and many Valhad animations. Ek and myself have been streaming most weeks, working on many different things ranging from skins, animations, to models. We also worked with our friend Neddy the Noodle in making a trailer for the tech demo. So the period that I have just mentioned was between January and March. Now that covers up just up until around the start of the IndieGoGo campaign, which, oh boy, that changed everything. Now, before I go into the craziness that is IndieGoGo, I think it's fair to say, while I believed we would reach the goal, I was not that overly confident, but we began our funding on the 31st of March 2025, and oh boy was it something. Our goal was £50,000, and in only 3 hours we hit 35%, which is around £18,000, which was a massive shock to me and the rest of the team. After 10 days, we were at 80%, and finally 2 weeks after its initial launch, we hit 100% funded, and it only got better. But before we go any further into that day after the funding came out, we released the tech demo with the server support from Shockbyte, which was incredibly helpful. We are also incredibly grateful for them, otherwise, we wouldn't have been able to support the amount of players that did end up arriving. We did run into several issues, such as the player count issue, so we had to reduce the servers from 100 players down to 40, which seemed to work. Our weekly updates carried on with several new pieces of concept art and models. This included the V2 or even the V3 versions of existing dragons, such as the Truffle, Icy Crown, Williams, and monument art, Scathe saddles, and more. Noah was hard at work throughout this entire period with map updates, fixes and tweaks. One of the larger updates and streams that we did was the Icy Crown V2 customization options. This included different tail types, armor plates, spikes, fur, nose, horns, and more. We think this led to quite a large spike in funding actually, but the largest spike in funding was from the addition to the new dragon, the Valhad, and its trailer, which came out on the 16th of May. While it may not have been fully finished, it was playable for testing, which was received well. On the 31st of May, the funding period had officially ended, and we had made £50,000 along with a 75% more than we had intended, with it adding up to a total of £87,000, or if you want to be exact, £87,556, which we are still in absolute shock about, but it was officially over. We were able to keep it open due to the amount that we made. So we thought, why not? Let's just keep it open. And that was a fantastic choice. The dev updates were still going strong, with humans being more fleshed out, in particular how the human base building will work and how the horde system will work. People were also curious how humans will deal with dragons, so we decided to make some concept art, which turned out really well. We also brought on our senior programmer, whose job was to make the tech demo more stable, and then after we got the money from the IndieGoGo, would start working on the long task of recoding that which our junior programmers had made, which involved changing everything from blueprints to C++, which makes things faster and cleaner. More human concept art was brought out with armor variations and rock climbing, along with human castle layout concept art. In July, we finally finished the basic Icy Crown V2 skin, which looks far better than the original V1 model. We also did some turnarounds of the existing dragons. All this time, the IndieGoGo was still making more money, the updates were going, and we then released a new video, which was our Alpha Plans video, which will be linked in the description. Not everything had been great though. In August, things started to slow down a bit. The excitement had slowly died down once again, and behind the scenes development had basically drawn to a close, with people paid and taking a well-deserved break. Our senior programmer was sorting out some research and development to increase the player count and performance, which didn't end up being positive, but for several months no one could work on the project other than in artwork and models, but in terms of artwork, not much was really needed at the time because it had already been made. However, the main thing that happened involved our lead developers, Sadek, and, well, myself too. If you don't want to hear about drama, just skip to the end of the screen. Skip to the time on the screen. It's nothing negative. Not really. It's just stuff that appeared, and I'll just explain it. So during the funding period and several months prior, myself, Ek, and Shad had been working together for around a year, and at that point we knew each other for around 4 years. It was mostly professional, but I decided that we needed to be more friendly and have some team building stuff, so we started playing Baldur's Gate 3, which, by the way, was a fantastic idea. We played, and there are a few, images that came out of it, and pieces of art, because it was memorable and fun, and we'll share those here, why not? During this period, we grew much closer, particularly Ek and I. We were able to talk more openly about our personal lives, including our relationships, and just home life and that sort of stuff. Now, Shad and I have been dating for 7 years at the time, now 8, as we've just celebrated our 8th anniversary, whereas Ek was celebrating her 4th. Ek and I grew especially close, with her venting to me about relationships, emotions, feelings, and fatigue. Over time, we started developing feelings for one another. For me and my relationship, that was fine. For hers, it was not. While there was nothing physical, there were other things that, in hindsight, were not ideal. However, having learned about the psychological and, in one instance, physical abuse she experienced, I do not regret anything. Ek and I continued to grow closer, and we met up. We realised our feelings were stronger than we thought, and I then went over in November, where we started dating. Since then, progress has been slow and steady, and we've returned with massive improvements from finishing the Icy Crown by the time the video goes out and finishing the Industrious. Things slowed down because she had to move away from everything to a new home, leaving to find work and reflect on her choices, which are still ongoing but improving every day. Work has increased several times over compared to before we started dating, and honestly, it's probably the best decision we've made. This will not affect anything in the future, regardless of what happens. One thing we're able to do is separate, a lot of people seem to struggle with, is separate work from play, in essence. But we felt that we owed it to the community to explain why the models were a bit slower. But if you're now in the community, you may have realised the amount of streams we've been doing, and the amount of work has basically quadrupled. Yeah, it's been pretty good. But yeah, we thought we owed it to you guys, so there it is, on the table. But moving on to something a bit more positive, or, well, depending on how you look at it. During December, we hit a slight overdrive, as our senior programmer had finished work on the updates, and finally got our junior programmers, who at that stage were basically doing training for C++ the entire time, back into the build, and are able to work on the game again. We still currently are trying to get Noah and our friends at OmniSound back in there, but that'll be for later in the video. Ek and myself started streaming a lot more, as I mentioned, which I'm sure you've seen in the announcement announcements on the Discord or YouTube channel itself, but one of the main things was the overhaul in the approach to things that we make. So we decided that we needed to be more professional and change the way our work system behind the scenes worked. So we had a meeting and altered the course slightly. The Wings of Dawn was always meant to be grim dark, but we never really showed that, so we decided to crank up the dial slightly and show it with the teasing image of the lobotomized dragon teaser, followed by the icy crown Nomad wing. So let's get the cat out of the bag. If you are part of the Patreon, you will already know this is as you get to see this update every 2 days, but for the rest of you, the Nomad lore has been slightly revealed. Nomads are not nice people. They are borderline cultists mixed with mad scientists. In order for a group of nomads to acquire a nomad dragon, they must first steal an egg from a dragon's nest. Once this egg leaves the nest, it's no longer a player character. Some people were confused about that. After the egg is acquired, it is stored in a device until it hatches. Once it does, the hatchling is almost immediately lobotomized, which we're thinking about making it a little quick time event, to make it docile and slow. After this process, the baby is fed blended William eggs, which are high in nutrients and biomass, and then the hatchling is fully surrounded in the same substance it is fed on. Eventually, the time comes for the nomad human to control the lobotomized dragon. The process can only be described as a human being being blended and inserted into the openings created by the lobotomy. Once this is done, the nomad human becomes a nomad dragon. Over time, the dragon begins to develop more human-like features, such as patches of human skin, more human-like eyes, fingernails and teeth. Human teeth and fingernails, that is. The dragon itself becomes more gaunt and smaller than its wild counterparts, but it's capable of being equipped with weapons, armor, and a saddle. This is all planned gameplay at the end of development, not anytime soon, but you will be able to, obviously it's going to be a dragon and humans teaming up together, in short. So yeah, it's going to start becoming very dark very soon. However, keep in mind that this is only being added after the game is basically finished. Moving on to something a little more lighthearted though, we finished all animations for the Icy Crown, at least we thought we did. We forgot one or two, which will be done soon. The Dustrious is halfway done with its animations because we've implemented a new way of working, which is if Ek doesn't finish X amount of animations, we have to stream, which has been actually going really well because we have had feedback on the stream and a growing talkative community there, which has been fantastic. The Dustrious has had its adult and baby morphs made, along with customization options like the crest types and the male and female options. For those of you that don't know what morphs are, so when it's a baby, it will slowly grow into the adult morph. So there isn't two models, it's one model that slowly changes over time, depending on the gender. So, what's changed overall, and what's the new plan? Due to the setbacks with the coding taking longer than planned, and with X several month break, we're behind where we want to be. So, we've taken the difficult decision to postpone the Kickstarter and the testing phase. We don't feel it's fair to you or our dev team to release a half-assed alpha like some other titles out there. So here is the plan. The IndieGoGo will end this January. That is set in stone. We will then be sending out keys to all relevant tiers for a testing session in February, which will include only the Icy Crown with its new model, animations and gameplay features on a basic test map. So why a test map? We need to make sure the Icy is not causing any issues such as frame drops or lag. This allows us to fix things one at a time. We also want to test how many players the server can hold. Our goal with this is 100 players. After that, we will test the main map with the same amount of players and to see how stable that is. Once that is done, we can look at boosting the player count and basic AI. Once the Icy is fully finished for the alpha, which includes new things such as combat mechanics, the hover system, additional flight mechanics, the wind system, customization options, team setup, basic nesting, survival mechanics, scent, and other systems, we will then move on to the next dragon, the Dustrious, then the next and the next after that until all the dragons are in and we can balance everything. By all dragons, I mean the 5 base dragons. Once that is done, we will start to work on basic AI so that carnivores have something to hunt and breathe life into the world a little more. This is shortly followed by the Horde system, which will lay the foundation for the human stuff, which is fully on hold until the dragon gameplay loop is fully finished and enjoyable. We plan on doing a Kickstarter later in the year, but that is undecided when that will happen as of now. I hope that this is something that gets you excited and pumped for what is to come. While we are not done with the video yet, I just want to say that we couldn't be here without your support. If you've not yet supported and would still like to, then please head over to our IndieGoGo and pledge whatever you want. Just keep in mind, real life does come first. If you have already pledged and want to increase the donation, you should be able to now, but if you cannot, head to our Discord, make a ticket with your email address in there, and I will sort out allowing you to upgrade that pledge if you wish. If you want behind the scenes updates though, head over to Patreon and support us there. Tiers have no difference, but you will unlock a Patreon skin. If you just want to do a one-off payment, that's fine. So, finishing up the video, the community have been asking several questions specifically for this video, so I'll go through some of them now while we have all of the fan art from 2025 in the background, which, by the way, some is amazing, some is weird, and it's just great. Thanks for all your hard work. My question is, will the game include dragons? That is from The Fool. No, the game will not include any form of dragons. I don't know what you're on about. Will you add humans? Will you add hamsters as cute pets for humans? That's from Twisted D, who is a dick. No, hamsters are dumb and you should feel bad if you like them. This is a bit of a longer one now. My question is, how will the relationship between humans and dragons look like? Can they be both symbiotic and parasitic or such? So like, can humans help dragons hatch and raise them? Can humans ride dragons like in How to Train Your Dragon? Will humans be able to extract resources from dead dragons? I'm somewhat new. So that's from Herald of Darkness. First off, welcome. This would be our Nomad system. Nomad humans will be able to make weapons and armor for them, but also not warring things. So for example, like they'll be able to pull farming equipment, ships, carts, maybe resource gathering tasks. Not 100% sure yet on that, but yes, eventually you will be able to gather leather, bone and meat from dragons. Our dragons they're not magical, they're creatures, so there's no like elemental stuff. And obviously for the Nomad stuff, I'm sure you've already listened to it, but it's previously in the video. You've mentioned that your focus and one of your competitive differentiators from other survival type genres is your focus on meaningful combat. How do you plan to make combat feel real? That's from KC. We plan on making dragons feel more like a boss rather than just running around spamming left click like many creature survival games do. So what does that mean? Well, we'll have a combo system. This has been shown in some streams, but it would make the dragons fight almost in a Dark Souls-esque way, allowing for more engaging cinematic-like battles, and I'm sure that somewhere you'll be able to find the combat animations that are there. We're probably going to be doing a dev update at the end of the month, so you'll see it then. Will dragons be able to nest, and will they be being born from the nest provide any gameplay benefits? That's from Rethalos. Apologies, some of these are worded a bit strange, but yes, nesting will be part of the game, but it will provide several benefits, such as protection of a larger dragon, but also an early growth boost for young that stay in and around the nest. So there'll be, there'll be some bonuses, not just having an adult that looks after you. Will structures like houses and castles burn or melt? For example, a Vulcan breathe fire on it for too long. That is from JMB4 Draco. This is something we're very unsure of, mainly because we're not sure how to balance it, as we could allow dragons to do that with wood structures, but then what would be the point for humans to ever have just wood structures that are more visually pleasing? So most likely not. However, we're not saying no or yes at the moment. We'll need to do some research and development on that. When is the next 5 dragons going to be released? Will they be aquatic? When will ocean environments be created? That's from Neon Xperia. Once the initial 5 dragons are implemented into the game, we will then be working on humans for a while. After that, we'll slowly introduce the next 5 dragons, which in no particular order would be the Vulcan, the Selvrix, Noctura, Truffle, and Lunamira. The aquatic dragons and human-related content with that will be added last. This is because it requires new biomes, gameplay mechanics, and a lot more. So for example, there would need to be several biomes, there would need to be fishing, there would need to be boats, there would need to be AI. It's like everything on land in the ocean. It's very difficult to do, so it's definitely the last thing we do, and then after that would be nomads. After you reach the full adult stage on your dragon, what is there to do? Lots of survival games struggle at this quote-unquote end game, and how deep will the crafting system be, and how will players unlock new recipes? That's from KC. Dragons will be able to claim hordes, which will allow players to grow a base of sorts. This will be upgradable and change in appearance. The more items that you have within the horde, this will also change how it looks. So this will open up competition between humans and dragons alike who want the Horde for stat benefits or just the resources for humans. Of course, there is always starting a nest and helping baby dragons if you want to do that. Crafting will be unlocked for humans through research, where human players will have to acquire runes in order to spend them in research tables, which will let you unlock new tools, weapons, armor, and more. We want, for example, smithing to have a few mini games to help with immersion, but that's all we can really say at the moment. But we want it to be immersive and just enjoyable rather than just clicking on sword and inventory and crafting it. We'd like to be a bit different. I was wondering, how will the different human factions work, and are there mainly cosmetic differences between them, or is there a bigger gameplay difference? If so, is the difference as noticeable as the Nomads, or is it more varying armor or weapons/tools than a complete overhaul? That's from Shadow Raven. We want new factions to feel different but similar. For example, if we get around to adding natives and the Vikings, they will both look vastly different with different technologies, such as Viking longboats, whereas the natives might have rafts, but better equipment for the mounts that are on the island. So we want everything to add an option, which makes gameplay more interesting and diverse. Thank you all so much for the amazing fan art and skins that people have submitted over on our Discord. Just before I finish up, I want to say we have a question. This is entirely to drive up interaction, but what in this are you most looking forward to? What in the video are you most excited about, or what in the game are you most excited about? Really interested to learn that. And what do you want from our game? Is there any aspects from other games that you want, or is there anything you're just hoping that we provide? But once again, if you wish to support us on IndieGoGo, it is ending on the 31st of January 2026, so the end of this month. So it's your last chance to get a copy of the game for quite a while. It also has got an IndieGoGo unique skin, which is the William skin, which won't be sold again. If you want to upgrade, you should be able to, but if you have issues, please make a ticket on our Discord server and submit your email, and I'll check out to make sure that it's all working. Also, I'm not sure if it was obvious, but anyone that does get a game key will get access to the testing. It's just an all key. We're not doing alpha, beta keys or anything like that. If you have a higher backer tier of the £1,000 or above tiers, please join the Discord, make a ticket, and inform us with your email address and tier, so we can just provide you with everything that you need. So these are the people that will be getting their custom skins, or the big boys and girls that are going to get, we'll work with them for custom dragons after the end of the development. So if you want to see behind the scenes and early content from our development, join our Patreon. You'll get a Blood Moon skin, which is this one. That will be eventually applied to all dragons, the base dragons anyway, the 15, and that's just for a one-off payment, so $4.99. You get the Discord rank, and then you see all the dev updates. But you won't get the continued updates on Patreon. We will be doing developer updates at the end of this month over on the Discord to cover loads of stuff in more detail, so head over there to have a look. You can also wishlist us on Steam, which is of great help to us. But thank you all so much for the support. We could not have done it without your help. From all of us here at Purple Hive Studios, thank you so much. We wish you a happy New Year's, and once again, thank you for watching.